Typically, in the past, you would get an actual passage of a full budget for a year. Since we've become a more polarized country with a polarized Congress, we have a lot of what are called continuing resolutions or CRs. Basically, they're stopgap measures that are not the full budget and don't tend to make a lot of changes on a lot of the spending priorities that Congress has. It typically just extends current levels of spending for a short term period of time so that the two parties can continue negotiating. The president has the power to veto any piece of legislation, and that includes the federal budget. And so essentially, what Congress needs when they are going into a budget fight, if they are wanting to fight with the president, they either need, right, the president's implicit sign off on whatever they pass, or they need enough votes to override the president's veto. Now, I think there's a combination of two different things at work here. One is that Congress, as I mentioned, is really polarized. The other thing is that Congress in recent decades has been more closely divided than they have been in the recent past, say the last century. But what's new this time around, as opposed to previous shutdowns or almost shutdowns, is this element of rescissions. And this is a tool that's been available since the 1970s, in which presidents can request, takebacks essentially of budget priorities that Congress has set out before, basically asking Congress to take back money that Congress has allocated. Is a pretty serious breach, I would say, of what we call the power of the purse with Congress. That's set out in Article 1, that this is a key power. It's maybe their most important power and point of leverage they have in going back and forth with the executive and making sure the executive doesn't accrue too much power. But if the rescission authority is going to be used in this way going forward, where basically any spending priority that the president doesn't want or doesn't want to fund is going to be subject to rescission, then Congress doesn't really have the power of the purse, right? And when you have a government shutdown, there are significant consequences, especially the longer you get into the shutdown. A lot of services that the federal government does that a lot of Americans take for granted would not be available or would significantly erode over time as we get, days and then weeks into a shutdown. And then that's a situation where Americans are really starting to notice and feel the pinch.